So the next panel is called Go Big or Go Home, From Indies to Big Conglomerates, How Companies Are Dealing with the Latest Gaming Trends. So I'm going to ask our panelists, Sam Collins, Cassia Curran, Gavin Johnson, Andre Krug, Terry Lee, and Ben Jeger to join the stage.
So welcome and thank you for persevering with us, coming back to another panel here at Pocket Gamer Connects London 2023. I assume someone did that earlier. I don't know. I feel like doing that. And welcome to this panel entitled, I am going to read it out, that might be half of our time, Go Big or Go Home, From Indies to Big Conglomerates. How companies are dealing with the latest gaming trends. Now, as you can imagine, I was filled with dread when I was given such a broad topic to go through. However, help is on hand, because we have here a collective group of individuals with unique and different perspectives and backgrounds. At least that's what it says here. So let's go big and dive right in. So I'm going to get you all first to just do a very short introduction on who you are, so who you work for, what your particular areas of interest are. I'm going to start with you, Cassia, because you're closest.
Okay.
Let's check the mic. If anyone's speaking and you can't hear them, wave at me and we'll get them to move the microphones a little bit closer. Okay, take it away.
So, hi, I'm Cassia Curran. I'm founder of Curran Games Agency. My background is in business development at companies such as NetEase and Jagex, and investment in funds such as Wings. But what I am focusing on right now is helping indie game studios, particularly in the VR space, with business development and business strategy.
Hey everyone, I'm Gavin. I'm the head of gaming at the independent EDM record label Monstercat. Primarily, my role is heading up all of our music licensing and partnerships. I've been there for 11 years, so my entire career has been primarily around the intersection between music and gaming at the company.
Fabulous, thanks. Over to you, Terry.
Hey all, I'm Terry Lee. I'm the SVP of Emerging Businesses at Crunchyroll, which encompasses games, business development, and e-commerce. I'm also the GM of Crunchyroll Games, and Crunchyroll is a Sony Pictures Entertainment company. And prior to that, I was the head of China Publishing at Riot Games.
Hey everyone, I'm Andre. I'm COO and co-founder of SOFTGAMES. We're an instant games company. We're one of the top grossing partners for Facebook on instant games, around about 120 people. Remote first, and happy to be here.
And you didn't mention you're based in Berlin, just like me. That's the segue. I've been in this space for 10 plus years, started at a company that was called SponsorPay, now Fiber, now part of Digital Turbine, and then spent the last 7 years at AppsFlyer. And now I'm at Moloco, running with the help of amazing people, the EMEA business. And Moloco is known to most as a performance DSP. So we help app marketing managers to drive user acquisition and user retention.
Amazing, thank you very much. And I'm Sam from UK. We're the trade association for video games and interactive entertainment in the UK. Feel free to check out our website, and I'll be here all day if you want to catch up with me. So we have representatives from Europe, from Berlin, from North America, and from Wimbledon. Is that right? Wimbledon?
Yes.
Yes, Wimbledon, I remember. Okay, now wherever you are in the world, and indeed as you walk around the halls and the floors out there and have meetings, there's something which will keep coming up in conversations, and that is artificial intelligence, AI. We're going to have a quick go at that. And it's a good job you've got the microphone, Ben, because I'm coming to you first. So lucky you. So just tell us, what impact do you think AI is going to have on our sector, the collective sectors that we represent, and how are you embracing that technology?
So, thank you. So we are a machine learning company. That's what we originally were named, MLC, and therefore artificial intelligence is at the core of what we do. And we use it to drive the user acquisition and try and find the users. But really, what is interesting, which is everyone is talking about Chat GPT out there, is the next evolution of generative AI. And I think what is particularly interesting is using generative AI for creative production. And I think that's something that we'll see really develop over the next year and years to come. And a topic that I think everyone should be aware of and investing in, and at least in terms of time spent. Yeah, that's really the big thing that I see.
Well, you've set the scene up perfectly then. Now we're going to go into some of that detail. And so, Andre, what's your view on AI and its future opportunity?
I think most important, what everybody should be aware is that AI is not going anywhere. So we actually had like a lot of discussions internally, also in the company. There are a lot of people who are afraid of AI, especially those who are creating assets, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, as I said, like AI is not going anywhere. It will expand. It will become a normal thing of our lives. And I think also for AI, it's the first time that the power is given to the ones who are creating something rather than executing, right? So if someone has a great idea, they always needed someone to transform this idea, to draw something, to scribble, to animate, whatsoever, and this is going away. That's a fact. Also, we have to be aware that at the moment, with everybody talking about ChatGPT, this is built on GPT-3. This is using around about like 175 billion parameters. Now GPT-4 is coming up, and this will be released somewhere in Q1, Q2 this year, and it will use 100 trillion parameters. So to put this into perspective, this is like if you're making a cup of coffee versus if you're running a Starbucks series of branches. Yeah? And so I think for anybody in the gaming industry, in the creative industry, there will be massive changes, and any company, no matter if smaller, medium size or big, they have to adapt. They have to use this as a tool in order to stay competitive and also to keep up with the competition.
Does that worry you at all, Gavin, or the need to keep up with this? What's your view on AI?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any direct implementations of it yet, but we do have a pretty short to long-term view of what that could look like. We're finding it to be pretty complementary, and it's something that will definitely be a part of our workflows in the near and long-term future. To give some direct examples as to what we're thinking of is, particularly in the music industry, I mean, our job is to, particularly in my department, is to service games the best we can, to provide the best and accurate audio that the game developer or publisher is looking for. The lowest hanging fruit could be something as simple as, hey, we need to move this drop of a song by 5 seconds, or we need this particular stem or vocal to be cut out. A lot of it is dependent on the artist and their involvement, which an artist could be touring the whole year. We can't get a hold of them to mix the record or edit it. So we could just have an AI editing tool just to do that and fulfill what the client needs. But then in the long term, what we're thinking about is that at Monstercat, we have 8,000 records, and we have the stems, we have the rights to the records. We could be adjusting music or creating new works based on the client's needs as well. So it's like, hey, I want this drum and bass song where I love the vocal, we love the artist, we want to be a part of this project, but I want it in lo-fi. And we could go and take that drum and bass record and make it lo-fi without anybody's involvement, and then be scaling up the amount of projects that we're working in gaming with. So we find it to be very complementary, and it provides more services that we can provide to our clients.
Go on, you go. I was coming to you anyway, Cassia, so go on.
I need an introduction. Don't need a prod to talk about AI. I think, so I'm seeing indies already using AI when I'm working with them, and I'm using AI already when I'm working with them. So when indie game studio is making a pitch deck for a publisher, for example, and they don't have the resources, the financial resources to hire a concept artist, they are often using AI with great results to develop concept art to give a understanding to the publishers, to investors, of what kind of art style, what kind of vibe they're going for in their games and they're planning to develop. And for me, I'm like, how do I describe this game? I've got this set of genres, or it's a genre mash, and I'm trying to help them with the marketing copy of the game, essentially, to publishers and investors. And I'd be like, ChatGPT, give me some inspiration here. But that having said, there's a few things that I'm thinking about right now where in terms of drawbacks. So in terms of, first of all, with development, I'm thinking about copyright issues down the line. You know, what are they? I don't know whether legislation can really keep up with the pace of using AI tools in development of games, but I'm sure it will come down the line. It might cause some problems, and I'm sort of thinking about that ahead of time. And then on the other side, the quality of what comes out, you always have to curate it. You can't just use it as is, but it can cut out a bunch of time. So I'm assuming, yes, it will make game development faster. But if you think about games, it's very much a winners take all market. So to get to the top quality, I don't know whether AI can really get you to the top quality needed, and whether you can really use the AI tools without having to pay something somewhere. Yeah.
But I think what he said is really a valid point, because what we've seen in the latest years, or since decades now, that it needed bigger and bigger teams to create really good mobile games. And I think this is now with AI. I have this one guy subscribed on TikTok, for example, and this is one single guy, and he develops within an afternoon like a brand for a clothing, for women's whatever, and he shows like how he's using ChatGPT, how he's using all the different AI tools for community management and whatsoever to, within one afternoon, create a brand where otherwise it would take an agency, usually weeks or whatsoever, because this whole creative process, it takes time and time and time. So I do think what we will see is actually more power to those independent developers, because they can do so much more with so much little resources, at least for now, until all the prices kick in for ChatGPT, etc.
Yes, you are probably actually going to see a bit of a flood of sort of mid-quality art. Right, so, but then, I think then consumers will have a reaction to that in the sort of medium term. They'll start learning what is AI generated. They're already learning, I'll just look at the hands, they don't make the hands correctly. I think that there will become even more of a premium upon like the really top quality artists, perhaps, who can make something that is really new and distinctive and outstanding, because AI, it's drawing from an existing data set, so it can iterate really well.
Yeah.
It can create really beautiful looking art, for example, but can they create something that is super new, super interesting looking? You see actually in the indie games market, there's certain types of games which do really well because they have really interesting, unique art styles. So like Greece, for example, Sable's another example. The key USP is that they're beautiful, interesting, distinctive, unique art. And AI, I'm not sure can really hit that. But it can create a lot of content very fast. So yeah,
but do you think the end user can differentiate between normal art and AI-generated art? I would say no. For the end user, it's basically, hey, he either looks at something, he likes it, or he doesn't like it. And it doesn't matter so much if it's created from a human mind or from an AI art.
So yeah, I think you might end up having a bit of a split between the sort of casual users. So casual players will not care. They really will not care. But the players that are really into AAA games, like the top quality stuff, they kind of, they have their identity as people who play like the best quality games. They'll probably put a premium on sort of non-AI because of the association with being cheap, I think, in the medium term. And also for indie games as well, if you're a player of indie games, and often it's like, yeah, I play cool indie games, and you have almost like a parasocial relationship with the developer of the indie game, and you sort of know who that person is. And so I think that the AI is going to have more impact upon casual than it's going to be very widespread in casual games, but not so widespread in the more kind of sophisticated, more art-driven, creativity-driven, very human side of game development, which would say AAA and the indie side, perhaps. That's my theory right now.
Yeah, I think that I would go back to what Andrew mentioned about where we are now with GPT-3 versus GPT-4. I think we're going to see leaps and bounds, and I think it's going to be very difficult to distinguish what a person created versus a machine. But we'll sit here maybe next year and have that conversation again, and either of us will be right. But I think what's interesting also what you mentioned about the fear that people have. I think as long as you consider yourself someone who has ideas and is able, because of your experience, to be able to judge what somebody is producing, then I think you are in a fantastic place. So then you don't have to approach this from a fear-based perspective. You should be very optimistic about the future and how it can help you bring those ideas to life in a much more efficient, scalable way. And you can iterate faster, and you can really, I think, get to better results than you could have ever dreamed of previously. So if your role is purely execution, then potentially that runs a risk of going away. So just purely executional work, I think, in the long term is something that will be done by machines. But ideation and feedback loop, I think, is really where humans and experience currently is very, very valuable.
Now, we did discuss, I mean, it's a great panel when I can just throw one question out and then 40 minutes is dealt with. But it's not all about AI. We're talking about broader trends and lots of different things. So thank you for those thoughts, but we're going to move on to, I mean, it's all related, isn't it? Let's be honest. And we've got a room full of creatives here today, and creating IP is at the heart of their work. I'm really interested in exploring the connection between games and other creative industries, and how IP could perhaps move across different platforms. And Terry, this is a question for you. You've been very quiet so far, very disciplined there in the middle. Thank you. Now you work with lots of IP owners at Crunchyroll. So how are you seeing IP develop, and what role does games have in sort of amplifying and broadening the reach to different audiences?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that's been a trend that's been developing over the last few years. But I think from Crunchyroll's perspective, having been in the media and streaming space for so long and getting into games, we're really seeing games as a narrative device now for expanding IP and broadening IP. So what I mean by that is, historically you have a lot of IPs that go into film or television, and then they replicate that storyline into the game, and they basically use the game to tap the same audience. Now what we're seeing more and more is using games as an amplification device, extending that storyline that has nothing to do with the original IP in the format of television or film, and using that to really drive towards new audiences, using games as a way to tackle people who would have never watched this show or series before, and creating original storylines that creates basically a feedback loop with the film and television itself. And that huge amplification of IP is becoming really, really powerful, to the point where you don't just have game companies getting into this. Of course, we've seen major media companies, Netflix, Disney, all getting into this, using what shows they have as an IP to develop into games and the feedback into the show itself. And so this is a pretty broad kind of trend I see that's very lucrative for creatives and IP owners.
Thank you. Gavin, do you have a view on this? What do you think of that sort of... Is games taken over the world with all of this, bringing this IP in?
Definitely. It's been quite remarkable for Monstercat. At the company, we have the mascot, which is the Monstercat, and with that, we've been developing... Why
aren't you dressed up as the Monstercat today?
I should be. We got a helmet. I should have brought it. I don't think Customs would have liked it, but... yeah, we have the mascot for Monstercat, which is quite iconic. It's what differentiates us as a record label from others. We've also been actively developing something called the Lost Civilization, which is sort of the world that Monstercat is in, and we have sub-labels called Uncaged, Instinct, and Silk, which they live and breathe within this Lost Civilization. We developed a language for it, a lot of various representations of culture and whatnot through these biomes. But with that, we've been able to not only package the Monstercat, but package the Lost Civilization within various titles. So we have long-term partnerships with our music and brand with Rocket League, Beat Saber. We've launched our own Roblox experience. We've done battle passes within Smite and Paladins with Hi-Res Studios, where we've been able to build these really compelling experiences where we're able to dive into the Lost Civilization and with the Monstercat, and being able to implement our artist IP additionally within these worlds that we've built at Monstercat. And it's been able to provide another level of engagement for the user to really dive into, collect, use within these titles, especially with the songs as well, where the stems of the songs are like the ability sounds when you cast your ultimate, and we're doing like announcer packs and things like that. So beyond just the music itself or the cat, we've been able to build these like very robust experiences that we package across titles, which has been incredibly successful for us essentially. So yeah, recommend that.
So global domination of the Monstercat. Let's go check it out afterwards. Pretty fascinating.
That's always the goal.
It's always the goal. And from a developer perspective, or a creative developer as a game studio, Cassia, what do you think of the opportunities in looking at different platforms, different routes to market?
Yeah, well, coming on from the IP side, I see that in the VR market in particular, there's games which have IP attached to them tend to outperform ones that don't. So and there's a theory behind that, is that players can instantly understand what the game is, or they have like some sort of like reference already. So it kind of helps really strongly with marketing. But you're seeing not just IP crossing over, you're also seeing different platforms, games from different platforms cross over. So Among Us has crossed over to VR. And then other way around, so Rec Room is a sort of VR first game studio game, and that's crossed into mobile extremely successfully. And you're seeing more and more these days games that are not focused on one particular platform, but actually are targeting multi-platform from the get-go. So yes, we're having a less of a kind of less of like a sort of penned-in groups which don't mix. You're seeing lots of mixtures in between, like from IP to different platforms, for sure. Yeah.
And there's new platforms every year, so those opportunities just grow, don't they?
Yes, that's right. And it's quite great for indie game studios because with new platforms, they often need to have content. And so how do they get studios to make content for them? They pay the studios. And then often those studios can just bring it out to existing, more developed platforms. So and get revenue sales from there. So it's a great way for new studios to get some leverage.
No harm in making money out of getting your content across all platforms. Sounds perfectly reasonable to me. And a lot of the conversations that we've had here, looking at this in quite high level, I'm gonna seamlessly move us into the metaverse if we're up for that, just for a little bit. Ben, I'm going to put you on the spot here, if that's all right, and give you the microphone now. We've all heard of the phrase the metaverse, and we all nod as if we fully understand what it is. But maybe that's the beauty of it, that it means so many different things to different people. But what does it mean to you, and how do you think it presents opportunities for companies in the future as we look at these trends?
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself an expert on the metaverse, so I'll also defer to some of my colleagues here on stage. But I think there needs to be a distinction, first of all, between Web3 and metaverse, and those terms get muddled up quite a bit. The metaverse, to me, is a cross-platform internet, and right now we see virtual worlds as one function of the metaverse, and I think this is something that is very promising still, but we have yet to see a much grander application of it. So I think I'd love to hear the opinion of my colleagues and them sharing a bit more about how they see these worlds developing.
Well, let's move it over to Andre then. So let's put him on the spot. We're all going to take it in turns and just hand this around, but feel free to come back and disagree with them then at any point if you feel you need to.
I mean, realistically, I think the metaverse is still another 10 years ahead, if it will ever happen. And most of the question if this will happen, because a lot of people are talking about the metaverse, nobody really has a clear view how it will be. Yes, I might be able to share my avatar across 15 different games, all platforms whatsoever, but the question is like, do people actually want this? You know, do people want to play with a VR headset, AR, glasses, whatsoever, or do they just want to sit on the bus, play their Candy Crush or any of SOFTGAMES titles, obviously, rather than, you know, bringing too much engagement into this rather short gaming session? And that's what we're seeing in the mobile gaming industry as a general thing, that sessions are becoming shorter because what is the most limited resource? It's time, right? Or time span I can focus on something. So from my perspective, yes, there will be more cross-platform. That's why we're obviously betting on HTML5. But will there be this metaverse where everybody is sitting in a virtual place with their avatars, whatsoever? I honestly cannot see it right now. Yes, I understand it, but I'm not as optimistic as others. And if so, I would say it's at least another 10 years. I think the mobile gaming market is huge for a reason, because of its simplicity and accessibility. And I haven't seen any solution so far which is as simple as my mobile phone, where I have everything with me.
What do you reckon, Gavin? You agree with Andre on that? Are we 10 years away and it's hard to see some of the sort of the potential solutions that we're going to be using?
I think we're closer than we realize on this one.
Well, closer than Andre thinks.
Yeah. In my opinion. The reason for that is the metaverse, or however you want to define it, for us, we're really seeing it as, whether it's decentralized or centralized, it's interoperable experiences for users. It's a wave it's an experience or experiences that are interoperable with each other, and it's frictionless for you to go from experience to experience. We have quite experience at Monstercat working with this because primarily the games that we like to partner with are cross-platform titles. So like titles that will be available on mobile, console, whatever platform you're on, you can really hop into that, which is why we like platforms like Roblox, we like Fortnite, Rocket League. These are all experiences that have, they're going to be around for 10 to 15 years. But to take it a step further, we really also want to be a part of these platforms that are frictionless. So I think a very close example to that is Roblox at the moment. I think you're going to see a lot of other platforms and engines adopt being able to hop from one game to another frictionlessly. But I think Roblox is probably one of the most spot-on examples in current day because it's all on the same engine, it's all on the same platform. Millions of kids and young adults are playing on this, consuming all of their time. And what makes it very addictive and very complementary to a user experience and especially a group experience is that because it's all on the same engine, you're able to highly optimize that platform. So you have a kid, your kid, or you could see kids playing on their mobile phones, their PC, whether it's the worst spec'd out phone as possible, the worst spec'd out PC or Mac as possible, but they're all able to frictionlessly play with their friends within these platforms. And I think we're going to see that more sooner than later adopted across other engines and games as well, where it'll either be on one web client that's all on the same engine, or it's all interoperable within a single client within games. I think it's a lot closer, and it's something that we're monitoring very closely at the company.
Well, I think cross-platform play is definitely becoming much more prevalent, much more popular. But the idea of having items travel from game to game, when it comes to balancing game economies, that sounds like a complete disaster waiting to happen. So I'm a little bit mixed on the whole interoperability sort of aspect of the metaverse. Then from the kind of VR, AR, MR view, I actually think that it's already gaining traction. So I think that the Quest 2, for example, it's done really well. I think we had maybe in 2016 like massive hype around VR, and then there was a massive winter, and everyone lost interest. Now, actually, somewhat under the radar, I think the Quest 2's maybe sold about about 18 million units. And that's a decent amount.
Are you trying to get a free set here? Is that what you're doing? For the promotion for it?
Well, I work a lot with VR because I'm seeing that it's like a kind of underserved opportunity. Like if you're an indie game studio right now and you want to break out, VR's like a really good sector to be in because PC, console, mobile, extremely competitive. Whereas there's not enough content for VR players at the moment. I think there's lots of opportunity there.
Again, back to opportunity. And Terry, what do you think about metaverse? Is it exciting you?
Actually, I was thinking what Andre was saying, and I do think the metaverse is a little bit far out still. I think Crunchyroll has been in a position where we've actually thought about this and explored this a lot, right? Because the benefit of Crunchyroll is it is still in a niche space of anime, so that is a vibrant but pretty unified community. And today, for us, all explorations of the metaverse have really been abstractions of community and audience building and audience engagement. Right? At the end of the day, we have, Crunchyroll has 10 million subs and 100 million registered users, but there's no way to catalog all those users' engagements together. There's no way to manage that community. And so we explore all these different derivations of the metaverse, whether it's through VR, whether it's through existing worlds, right? And the challenge we always ran into, even with Roblox, even with Meta, is cool, you've got this layer of abstraction in the metaverse, you're engaging with them, but to Andre's point, what is the extra value you're providing? Like, why were they there beyond just being there, showing up, saying hi, and then logging off, and then going back to their mobile phones to play the game or watch the video? So I think it is here in some ways, but to capture that true value, I think it remains to be seen, I think.
I just wanted to ask the question. So you mentioned 18 million units sold, but in terms of MAUs, I think we're pretty low still, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's quite seasonal, so it really depends on the holidays, for example.
Okay.
But I think there's probably more VR players than you might expect. Also, it probably depends on lockdowns. I wonder if now that lockdowns globally has stopped, you might see a bit less activity in VR. But I think that's almost true for all games. I think we see a bit of a hit. It was great. Lockdowns was so great. COVID was so great for the video games industry. But so we'll see. I think. Yeah.
And then in terms of interoperability and taking assets across, I always wonder, and to me that's actually like the promise of Web3 more than metaverse in itself. But yeah, as I said, I'm not the expert, but the question to me there is always, do we need blockchain technology, for example, in order to make that happen? And if the answer is no, which I believe it's not, because it could be done without it, it's just simple databases. So if that's not necessary, then why haven't we seen it before? And I think to your point, it's a nightmare in terms of balancing in-game monetization and economies. And that's why we haven't seen it. And I don't think that just because now it's possible on a blockchain, it necessarily needs to happen, because it already didn't happen for other reasons. So that would be my 2 cents on that.
We've got a few more people wanting to speak. Do so, Gavin, but I'm just going to prepare the audience. There is a moment to ask a question coming up in about 30 seconds' time if you have any questions, so get them ready, Gavin.
I just want to touch on the Web3, do we need it now or not? I think for Web3, we don't need it right now in terms of the metaverse. I think where you're going to start seeing more adoption into Web3 is when we start having a new generation of gamers and metaverse users or internet users that really do care about the preservation of their digital items, because in today's world, you have items that you've collected. I mean, I'm a longtime gamer. I've especially games like World of Warcraft, where I have items that I treasure, that I've defeated a boss for when I was 11 years old or something. But out of all these items, you have a lot of game developers and studios that either don't support the game anymore, they don't exist anymore, or they randomly, arbitrarily ban your account, and then you lose complete access to those items. But I think, and you can never get them back, and you never really own those items anyway, because typically in terms of service, those items can go away, or they can be removed for you for any given reason under their terms. But in today's growing generation, I truly believe they care more about their virtual identity and what they sort of collect in the digital world than they do in real life in most scenarios. And I think as they are more aware of what they own and do not own within the digital side, which I think the newer generation is more aware of than the older one, I think that's when you'll start seeing a bit more of a generational leap in adoption of Web3 versus centralized solutions. So right now, yes, I think centralized solutions appease and are good for today's audience, but I think for future generations, I think there'll be a lot more need and want to have more preservation of the things you've collected on the internet or metaverses or games in the future.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Any questions from this audience? And we do have a question there, a couple of questions. There's no panel on after us, is there? But that doesn't mean we can be here all day.
Perfect. Hi there. That's a very interesting panel. Hi, Matti from Outflyer here. I have a question that refers back to the title of the panel, so Go Big or Go Home. What we notice in the last couple of years, right, due to multiple different things from the privacy-centric changes as well as the COVID, is that the big studios got bigger and the smaller studios had even more, let's say, barriers to entry, right? If you want to start a studio now, it's much harder than it was a couple of years back to actually be in the top games. So my question to you is how do you think AI will actually help those studios, or in turn go the different way? Let's say Facebook or Google AAA campaigns or UAC campaigns, when you have to spend quite a lot of money for the campaign to learn. And yeah, I just want to hear your take how AI will actually influence the smaller studios, and we bring back the equilibrium, or rather, we'll see even more gap.
Right, thank you for that. Anyone want to take that one on?
So I think that the small studios will have the capability to make bigger games and tackle genres which are bigger. So MRPGs, where you have to make a ton of content, it's going to be, AI will make that easier. And so it's been a bit of a truism that, for a small studio, you should not try and make an MRPG for your first game because it's extremely complicated and you have to produce so much content. So yeah, thinking about things like live ops, etc., that should be easier, I think, with AI.
I think it's actually two things. One thing, what I believe in is AI will have an exceptional role when it comes about creating games and also partly testing the games. This is the first thing you need. And the second one, for sure, is the UA, right? And usually right now you need ultra-large buckets in order to bring your games somewhere near the top 100 charts. So I do see AI playing a major role in the creativity of the games, in the execution of the games, and then also making it more efficient to test not only on UAC campaigns or Facebook with AAA campaigns, but maybe across other ad networks as well. So maybe that the ad spend is less in order to make some early assumptions if your game is promising or not. At the end of the day, still the small developer will then probably need a publisher or need some investment because they will still need cash, but the time to this point where they know, hey, this is valuable or not, my game, will become much shorter. That's what I believe. But they will still need a lot of money. So there is no AI who can change this, which can change it.
Thank you very much for that question. We're going to squeeze one more in, are we? Okay, let's go for it then.
Hi, sorry, Harry
Yep.
from PlayStation.
Hello, Harriet.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. It was just more of a comment, really. I found it interesting that Andre was talking about time and the fact that the metaverse feels like a very long way away, because just the fact that time is our most valuable resource, right? And people don't have the time. And obviously Gavin's point was very much about Roblox and Fortnite. And obviously kids have got loads of time. That's the thing, right? They don't have all of the demands that we have in the adult world, so they can really get into all of these different platforms like Roblox and switch between different games in Roblox and so on. And I just wondered if that point that Andre made about time is kind of what all of this hangs on in terms of people's ability to be able to really get into some of these things. So I found that interesting. And also to Gavin's point about children and young adults wanting to really own these digital assets and how the metaverse will evolve for them and what that will mean. And the thing that I still don't get is, surely a server can just be switched off. You know, your point about having an account and that just being switched off, surely that's the same in the metaverse, right? Surely the platform owner, it can just not exist one day and then you don't have that thing anymore. That's the bit that I don't really gonna get.
I mean, so on the point of the items going away, I mean, in Web3, what you can do is you can decentralize host items on IPFS. So that's a way you can decentrally host items. That could be either in the form of a video or an image or an asset. So no, like there can be certain hooks in Web3 that a developer or publisher could implement, but in the future, I think there would be more of a demanding standard from the user. We're starting to see a lot of that right now in things such as creator royalties. Right now, there's a bit of a battle between should a marketplace charge as low as 2% for items and whatnot, and there's a lot of demand just to go straight to zero. So I think there's a lot of a tug of war when it comes to what digital ownership of items within a Web3 medium looks like, but there is ways for you to completely decentralize the hosting of those so that it will never go away and you can have that forever.
Maybe to your point about the time, just quickly rounding it up within 30 seconds. I think in the past what we've seen, yes, kids had a lot of time, but when we're looking, for example, towards China and towards what all the other major apps are now introducing, is limiting the time of kids which are spending so much time on their device. So kids actually don't have as much time anymore spending on their mobile devices. So I think this is also a trend which we'll continue to see more, that kids' time on mobile devices is getting more and more limited because it's not good for them, right? So I don't think that kids have unlimited time anymore.
Talking of time, our time is definitely up, and we are the barrier to lunch, after all, and that's a terrible place to be. But first, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and listening to our panel today. But most of all, I'd like to thank our 5 contributors: Cassia, Gavin, Andre, Terry, and Ben. Thank you very much.